Presented from the iShin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Frustrated with finding car wash parts and downtime? Hey, I'm Kyle Alexander, and in this professional car washing and detailing executive spotlight, we're talking with John Ohlert. He is the CEO of American Car Wash Solutions. We're going to try to address some of this today. John, thanks for joining me today.
Kyle, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So, you're a car wash owner. You work with American Car Wash Solutions. How did you drive growth in your car wash?
So I started as a car wash owner before I bought American Car Wash. So, and it was, a little community place. And how we really drove growth was kind of sticking to the basics. So a lot of it was around service. A lot of it was around quality. And then we really started to figure out how could we be more efficient? How could we introduce technology to improve things? But as importantly, give us the data so that we really could start showing the team kind of what they were doing before and kind of what we needed to do. And once they were armed with the right information, it went a really long way. So, and on the technology piece of that, once we had the right tools in place, we introduced an unlimited program, so the monthly memberships, and that has been an absolute home run for the car wash.
That's awesome. And like you said, you're an owner. Obviously, like I mentioned too, you're CEO of American Car Wash Solutions. What got you into this industry? And maybe talk a little bit about what you were doing before you got into the car wash industry.
All right, so that's a loaded question. We could be here all day. So I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So what got me into it was I had retired. I had a 30-year career on Wall Street. I'll expand on that. But basically I had started to sit on some boards, do some advisory work. I was teaching at Fordham, and it just wasn't enough for me. So, I like fixing things. That was a big part of my career. I love doing things at home for kind of mental health. And I was started to look at franchises. And one of my neighbors owned this local car wash, and I knew it. I knew it kind of could be better. So, I had just reached out to him. I was really thinking about building one. And I just wanted to learn kind of some more about the business. Luck, fate, a lot of that plays into it. It turned out that, as we got into those conversations, he and his partner were not kind of on great terms. So, basically a car wash that wasn't for sale became for sale. So, spent a lot of time talking to my wife about it. I had never worked at a car wash. I had done a lot of things growing up. Working at a car wash wasn't one of them. But, and I am a car guy. Right.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Even kind of middle of winter, my cars were always clean, what have you. So it just, and then relative, and I'm, my background is as a financial analyst. So when I was looking at the franchise opportunities and the numbers, and I started to model out the car wash, it became really clear that, financially, car wash had some pretty good upside. So we bit the bullet and did it. And, it's been great. I mean, the team's great, the customers are great. And getting to know the community kind of helped move me on to American. And what I did before was I was an analyst, and then I was a credit officer, and then I worked for Fitch Ratings. So my claim to fame is I started at Fitch when it was a very small company. There were two very big competitors out there. Our customers were investors, and sure. They were unhappy with the kind of two big alternatives out there. So I was there 22 years. We grew from 300 people and under 100 million in revenue. And when I left, we were 3,000 people, and we were doing $1.2 billion a year.
Wow. That's some awesome growth.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I bet.
It was a lot of fun.
And I mean, I've got to ask this question. So going from Wall Street to the car wash industry, yep. Has there been anything that you've kind of taken from your Wall Street experience and implemented in the car wash?
It's a great question. So in my corporate career, I was the fix-it guy. So, I was very committed to quality and the product, and, so I was good at the analytics, but usually analysts are much like engineers. They're not necessarily people.
Sure.
But I actually could do both. So whenever we had, it could have been models, it could have been a group, it could have been structure, It could have been regulatory. When those problems developed, typically then John had a new job. so I was always good at kind of figuring things out and finding solutions. And a lot of that was, team or technology or what have you. And it really started from my first jobs, so I've just been able to do it. And what's very interesting is in those kind of successes, the themes remain the same, right? If you have good people, you have good product, you have the right structure, it transcends it and it's just a matter of really kind of developing what you think the mission is and kind of direction you need to go, and getting the people that are qualified and really want to follow, and you can turn out to lead to some pretty good results.
Kind of sticking in this financial realm per se, something that has been just very relevant in the car wash industry of late has been private equity. So as an owner yourself, what's your perspective on private equity and the impact it's had on the entire car wash industry?
It's funny because it can be a double-edged sword, right? So to a lot of owners, it was a godsend, right? Many had built really good businesses and exited at very high multiples and are living a pretty good life. For somebody who really likes the business and was looking to buy more car washes, it was problematic because it drove up prices on so much from, kind of new development to existing product. So, and I'm just fundamentally a value guy. So, I probably negotiated 6 transactions and I just couldn't complete them. One, I literally told the guy, I'm like, you're asking me to do 40,000 cars you're not doing. He's like, how did you know that? That's what I do.
Right. You knew it before you did.
So I would say, so that's not necessarily, a great thing, but the attention they've drawn, the capital they've drawn to the industry, the interest, it's hard to argue that those aren't really good things.
Let's kind of transition, talk a little bit about American Car Wash Solutions.
Sure.
You just acquired this last year, correct?
Yeah, August of last year.
What inspired you to acquire American Car Wash Solutions, and maybe tell me a little bit about the changes you've made since you've been in your spot?
So another really good question. So it's really funny because it was really a mix of frustration and opportunity. So when I bought Wonder Wash, it was in bad shape. It hadn't been loved. It needed a lot of renovations. So I had a lot to learn. So I made a lot of phone calls. There were a lot of vendors I contacted seeking, help, assistance, guidance, parts, what have you. That was not always good. I think some of that was the influence of PE, right? So they were very focused on larger chains, right? Which makes sense. It's almost like banking, right? There's a lot of customers banks don't deal with if they're not a particular size. So, they were caught up in that. The numbers arguably our mom and pop still make up 70%, or more of the business, in my view. And really getting to know so many people over the course of that 4 years, going to the different shows, I wasn't the only one with those frustrations.
Sure.
So as I fixed Wonder Wash, I was introduced to American and Walter Leon in particular, and my life changed. It was just finally had somebody who was willing to listen, willing to help, willing to deliver. I was like, well, that's a really interesting concept.
Absolutely.
Maybe the market might be interested in something like that. So again, it wasn't for sale. It was just I had gotten to know the old owner. Actually, his was one of the ones I negotiated, one of his other car washes. And kind of conversation led to another. And the big thing for me was they moved locations. So they were in a shop in the Bronx in Grand Course with like a dungeon. Then they moved to this new location in Mount Vernon, which is, just a really nice factory. So,
Nice.
And literally the first time I went in there, I was like, this could be so much more. So between things I think the market needs, feedback I got from other owners, and really a lot of support from them to be like, what, John, we think this is a pretty good idea.
Sure.
We bit the bullet. And again, I got to say, my wife was really funny because the car wash had kind of turned the corner. We were doing really well. This came up. I'm like, I really don't know. She's like, it sounds like you have to do it.
Right.
So I jumped in and we did it again. So it's been very interesting so far. There's a lot left to do, but we made a lot of progress. The changes we've really focused on have kind of been numerous, but one, we've been very focused to, I only have the one car wash. The owner was a pretty significant car wash owner. So I think some people didn't want to deal with the company because they saw him as a competitor or a threat.
Gotcha.
So we're trying to draw that line and avoid that. We've really focused on kind of product and new product introduction. And some of that is just listening, right?
Sure.
To customers who are also friends, right? So they have ideas, we hear them out, and if there's something that makes sense, over the course of this year, we introduced a new stainless steel single length top brush. That has gone over very, very well.
Nice.
So, things like that. I would say we've also done a really good job partnering with others. So I think the company was very insular before, really focused on servicing, one large client.
Sure.
So we're just kind of trying to change that. But like Wash Brands is a marketing company that we partnered with. Interestingly enough, the old company had used them, just didn't kind of use them the way probably they could have or should have. So that was a nice gift.
Yeah.
But then there's just others. So we recently signed a distributor agreement with Complete Car Wash Solutions. That
cool.
And Nick's great. He has a great team, and they think like we do. I mean, when they're doing a job and they're doing an install, they want it done right. You don't want problems down the road. You want that owner happy. So we actually have a few others that we're speaking to that for people who want to approach the market that way and kind of want to add this service component that we think has been missing. We're very happy to deal with them. And then there's others like G&G Lighting we think is a great company. Premier we think is a great company. So, I think that one of the biggest changes is we're really now able to offer kind of end-to-end solutions. It's not just a conveyor or some brushes. When we're talking to customers, we can deliver complete tunnels. We're always going to continue to do kind of renovations or repairs or things like that, particularly when it's our equipment. We like that element too, and it's quite helpful.
Sounds like it's been a busy first year so far. I mean, lots been happening, it sounds like,
I'm,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely type A, and it's not going fast enough for me, but I was reflecting just a few weeks ago, we had set up a new office, conference table, it's just, where we are versus where we were, 9 months ago is pretty different.
For sure.
And we have a pipeline that, this company probably never thought about having before. So that's all exciting. It's delivery, right? So we need to stay focused. And there's plenty we need to do, continue to do, but we're getting there.
Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
You started to touch on it a little bit in a prior response, some of the frustrations that you were kind of seeing as an operator. And I mean, I mentioned it off the top, parts ordering can be frustrating, downtime can be frustrating. It even has a direct impact on customer experience. So from your seat at American Car Wash Solutions, what can be done to mitigate this?
So much.
So
it's a tall order. Obviously there's some really good big companies that are out there. I even had frustrations with some of them. Some of it is language, right? So if you're like, Talk Car Wash is just, I think, a very helpful site for owners. And there are people there with just great experience that are willing to share. That experience isn't necessarily in the search tools of many of these parts providers. And we're guilty of it as well, and we're working to fix it. So some of it's the library and the language, right? And some of it's building up the websites and the technology and the documentation before, so it's a lot easier to say, okay, my top brush is broken, I think it's this part, can I click on that part and get the proper link? So it just takes kind of time, effort. It's really better organization, better technology, and some investment in kind of the libraries, so the search function. But then there's the delivery end of it too, right? So the one thing I always liked about American was, and it happened to me, where things would break. You can literally call the shop, and their shop hours Monday through Saturday, and we'll fabricate shafts or what have you if you're down and you need to get up and get running. That I don't think there's a lot of people doing. So that is something we remain very focused on and willing to do. And when you get that call and you know an owner's losing 500, 1,000 cars, it's real money. So
for sure,
anything we can do to kind of help and stay focused, we're going to try and do.
At the car wash show this year, plenty of companies from around the world. Yeah. I've got a list of just a few of them here. You had companies from Switzerland, you had some from India, South America as the continent, Australia, Japan, China, all these different companies. Why do you think the whole world is kind of looking at the American car wash industry?
Great question. Some out of necessity. So, there's some corners of the world that, have growing needs, right? But like water is a tremendous issue. India is just a great example. So I ended up talking to a few people from India while we were at the show. Cool. And they're very focused on how do they do this? How do they create systems that are very cost effective, right? Because, the GDP isn't high, so they're not going to be able to charge what we charge in the States. But it's also, they're very focused on how good of a system can they create to reclaim the water and save there as well. So some of it is, environmental. Some of it is just interest, right? As countries do better, and people do tend to love the U.S. lifestyle. We're a unique place, right? It's pretty special relative to when you get to visit a lot of other parts of the world. So I think there's always that interest. The depth of our markets, right? So our capital markets are so deep. Our car wash market is now very, very deep.
Yes.
Right. So it gives everybody a chance to really see and experience and variety. So even as we talked to Nick about how the tunnels that are preferred build in the Southeast versus the Northeast, there's tremendous differences in what people want in their tunnels. So, so you get to see that variety. So depending on kind of what climate you're in, that may influence what you want to do. I literally got a call from our receptionist from Iraq looking to import car wash equipment. So it is pretty interesting, but some of it's been established. Obviously, there is a lot of media attention around it now.
Absolutely.
Private equity's had a big play in that. So there's just more for people to bite into.
Right.
So I think that kind of helps stimulate the interest. And then obviously there's, you can go into any city, right, and go on a little tour, self-guided tour if you want of car washes.
Sure.
So it's I think the depth is a big factor there.
Yeah, helpful to mention too. I mean, all of these associations now are putting on these car wash tours around like what's happening. Definitely cool to gain some knowledge and education on just kind of what's happening around you with some of those tours, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the associations can be very helpful. One of the things I love about the industry is how collegial it is. As long as you're not in somebody's backyard, I have had great conversations with people who, there was no reason that they should have been so candid or open, and they've been great. And I've learned a ton. Hopefully you'll be able to return that favor someday. But I do really love that about the industry, and I think relative to Wide Eye by American, I do like the industry, and I like many of the people that are in it.
And that kind of leads perfectly into my next question here. From Wall Street to the car wash industry, your time in it, you've had a lot of experience mentoring people. Maybe share an example of how this has helped you, and not just you, but others in business.
So I think that's the beauty of mentoring, right? So it typically is, personally, it's so satisfying, right? When you help somebody kind of see or realize their potential that for whatever reason, maybe they didn't have a good manager or weren't in the right company or what have you. You build this trust, you give them kind of opportunity, you give them access to data, which that is a really big part of it, right?
Sure.
Data is just such a powerful thing. That's what when people are willing to share it with me too, I've always appreciated. But careers, success, corner offices, global travel, the thing that you always remember later are the people that you helped along the way. So I still get phone calls from folks I helped 20 years ago, right? And there's nothing better feeling than that. So the example I would give you right now is, so the guy who manages the Wonder Wash now is a great story. He started there very young. He had kind of lost his father at an early age, so his mother wanted him and his brother working to keep them out of trouble.
Sure,
which he was one of the reasons I bought Wonder Wash, because I knew him.
Way.
He played football around the years of my son. He was a great young man. That whole team I really liked, but he didn't have the right guidance. So now he is the mayor of Yorktown Heights. I mean, literally when I first bought the place, I had some Wonder Wash gear on. We go out to the diner. they're like, "Oh, you know Connor?" My wife was she's like, he can never go. And I hope he never does. We've incented him not to. He now is part owner in the place,
That's
which
awesome.
is just, he's just a great story. Totally fluent in Spanish. So when you see, things like that, and I knew that opportunity existed, but to see him really chew into it and deliver, and the pride, his family's pride in him. I mean, to me, that's just a great example.
Oh, absolutely. That is definitely a great mentorship opportunity for him and like for you, and just very, very cool. John, last question I always like to leave people with. Is there anything else you want to add about your time as a car wash owner or running American Car Wash Solutions? Anything else at all?
Oh man, that's a good one. So I guess I'm still pretty excited. So American, I knew was I like to fix things, as we talked about, right? So American needed some fixing. I think just kind of getting the message out there, and as we get more and more wins and publicize those, I think people will really realize that it's nice to have this little quiet 18-year-old company that's really proven that the equipment really holds up and delivers. And we just really got to kind of do a better job at that. I think the opportunity is bigger than I really initially thought. So that's going to be fun for me too, right? Because I do like on top of like getting in the middle of building a piece of equipment, I really love building organizations.
Sure.
So I already have my to-do list of kind of who's next to hire and what have you. So and then it's just working like Wash Brands is really good, helping out with even on the technology side, customer relation type of stuff. So it's all getting there. It's tough to be patient when you see the opportunity, but having somebody like Nick involved and some of these other distributors we're working with, the reason they came around is they had equal kind of similar frustrations. So we can help solve them together.
Awesome. Great stuff, John. Thank you so much for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
And thank you for watching this professional car washing and detailing executive spotlight. We'll see you next time.